Buddy, my name is Matt Pearsall. I am the community manager here at Second Step and Committee for Children, and I am pleased that you all are joining us for our November Second Step Community Member Spotlight. I'm really honored to be able to have you all meet Wendy Edwards, who is the K-6 lead counselor at Collegium Charter Schools. Hi, Wendy, and who is gonna come and talk a little bit about the fantastic work that she and her colleagues are doing right now to support students' social emotional well-being. So welcome, Wendy. Can you start off by just telling us all a little bit about who you are and your connection to supporting student social emotional learning?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Matt, for having me. This has been really exciting, and like I said earlier, I have been excited to do this because I'm very passionate about social emotional learning, but I'm also a learner myself, and I'm constantly learning. So I am the K-6 lead counselor. I also have a caseload of myself in one of our elementary buildings. And social emotional learning has been a journey for the last 5 years at my current setting at Collegium Charter School. We started out by piloting with Second Step, and we did half the lessons just to try it on a little bit. And then the following year, we rolled it out completely. And since then, it has morphed and changed over pretty much every year. It's now grown into up to our 6th grade now uses Second Step as our curriculum part. But what we're learning is just social emotional learning is much broader than just a curriculum and a lesson or a special. It's really the ins and outs and the integration of all of those skills that not just the students are learning, but the staff and all of us adults are learning as well.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you're working on right now? What is something that you and your colleagues are working on that you're particularly proud of?
Well, in light of the crisis, it's been challenging for all of us. But before the crisis happened, we had already planned to kind of go to a responsive classroom training and get some education on that. And one thing that I'm very passionate about is not layering things on top of each other, which I think we tend to do sometimes in education. And as we looked at responsive classroom and the format that they offer, it goes so well with our curriculum of Second Step. And it also creates an environment that's interactive and supports the relationship building process between teacher and student. And because of that, we have implemented that this year virtually. When we started in the fall virtually, it was kind of, at first we were thinking, how's this going to work?
So this was your first year doing it?
This was our first year using the responsive classroom format. We had already planned to do it, but then COVID hit and all that. And so we kind of had to evaluate things over the summer. And after going to the training, though, I became very excited about the natural, organic way in which this works. We had already sectioned out in our schedules a daily time for class circles. We have done a lot of education on restorative practices, trauma-informed, all those things that as educators we're really trying hard to integrate into our common language and into our learning days so that we can be sensitive to the different types of learners we have and the different types of families they represent and the different types of emotions they're bringing each day to the learning environment. So I've been really excited to have the support of our administrators, which we couldn't do it unless we all kind of unified around this is important. And, all the way up from our CEO down to every teacher in our building, we've seen a unity that has built over the last 5 years around this is important. Then when COVID hit, it was like, wow, this is important.
How is that changed what you're, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
How is COVID kind of, how has that manifested itself? When you're saying it's become really, really important in the last few months, what is that looking like?
Well, change causes stress, right? It doesn't matter how small or how large. So, obviously this has all been very difficult for all of us, but having the anchor of what we had already built up to this point before COVID happened, to me, provided a foundation that we could build off of during COVID. So as we continue through this pandemic and through the ongoing unknowns and the ongoing changes, The common language has remained. The ability, we have integrated over the last 5 years our Second Step language into our PBIS matrix. So if you were to see our PBIS matrix, you would see things that you would see the calming down steps under being responsible to use the calming down steps. You would see using STEP as a skill or an expectation when we're trying to solve problems and being accepting of others. So it's neat to see how that common language has been integrated in our PBIS programming, as well as in our daily class circles with building relationships. And I've seen that the responsive classroom format has given us a platform to integrate those lessons. We now call it Skill of the Week. So our Skill of the Week is, because that's how Second Step kind of does it anyway, is we have our Skill of the Week, and we start off by teaching it on that first day, and then we reinforce every class circle after that. But it's within the context of a greet where everybody's being called by name, and that process just helps kids feel I belong somewhere. This is my space. And I'm just noticing more and more engagement as the fall has continued. Students, as they get into the routine, they're starting to enjoy being able to connect with each other in that space. In addition to that, I've also been doing a lot of lunch bunches with kids. And one indicative piece for me as I was reflecting on this process over the last 5 years was we have a 4th grade boys group that has done an incredible job of just at a lunch bunch. There's not a huge agenda. It really is more a safe space. Think of it as a safe room, kind of like we would do in any crisis in a school, but longer and broader and more ongoing. These guys show up and they've been naturally sharing. I feel frustrated when I have to learn new material. I feel annoyed that, I'm still working on this review work when I'm ready to go on to the next thing. The ability to articulate and name your feeling and talk about it with peers and all boys, that's the result of what we've done, because they've had Second Step and they've had this SEL programming for the last 5 years of their life.
That's a really it's a really powerful example of what this work can look like when you really commit to it and make it part of your school. I think that's the thing that I'm really impressed about, kind of hearing you talk about the work you're doing is Second Step, and then you're integrating it in with your responsive classroom circles, and you're integrating it with PBIS, and you're integrating it with your lunch bunches. Sounds a lot like when you hear like Castle talk about how social emotional learning needs to be all day throughout the every day throughout the day, and not just a lesson. You're really living that you've really kind of built that framework in your schools. Is very, very cool to hear about.
That's awesome. And the framework word that you're using is what I love. That if you have a strong framework, then we can continue to morph and grow it over time. And I think that's what has helped, is even when we needed to make changes, because failure also is part of the learning process. I'm sorry, my little thing. We've made mistakes and we've had to make adjustments. But if you have kind of that main framework set and can continue kind of like rolling that train forward in a slow fashion, it builds. And I'm pretty excited to see where we've come, but we definitely have a ways to go in probably where we want to be. But I'm just very proud of how far we've come.
Yeah, and as well you should be, I think. So I think I know there's a lot of people who specifically are interested in ways to integrate Second Step and responsive classroom and Second Step and PBIS. Those are questions that come up all the time. But then I know there's other people that are just interested in taking their social emotional learning programs and getting to a point where they're infused throughout the school. And I'm wondering what kind of words of advice you might have for people who are working towards the place where your school is right now.
Start with your administrators. I think that was one of the best things was I came into a setting where, the director of student services at the time was very passionate about SEL. That combined with just meeting with my administrators in the building was kind of the first step I took, and then collaborating with my colleagues, the counselors, and kind of working through things and debating things over the years has been really valuable. I think the other piece I would strongly recommend to anyone going on this journey is really look at the big picture and set a goal, and then set very small goals to lead to that larger goal, because that will help you stay sane, but also consider the teacher. One of the things I love about Second Step as a curriculum is that it's teacher friendly. It's scripted. It's basically cognitive behavior therapy packaged for the everyday educator who is a hero delivering this to their students, right? That is awesome. That resource you can't get. I haven't found anything better out there. So when you think about the teachers, think about what's going to work, for your schedule, because everybody has like a different type of schedule. So scheduling is important, but that integration piece, like how can you build capacity in the teachers to be able to deliver not only the concepts, but be able to maintain the practices that go with that concept. Something as simple as being assertive, having staff time where you model being assertive as a leader in the building, and then you model being assertive in your relationships with colleagues, and then you model being assertive when you're managing a behavior, not aggressive, not passive, but assertive, right? So that's what we learn. That's what we teach the students. Living that out as a staff really makes a huge impact. And I've noticed that. I've noticed some common language coming out of staff members outside of the setting of students. And to me, integrating, not just putting a layer on, hey, we're going to adopt this now. Let's put this in addition to everything else. Look at the curriculum for your ELA curriculum, your math curriculum. How can we mold it and blend it in? How can we mold it in with social studies and science? And how do we begin and end the day on a positive note, or an inviting way? You look at the big picture and then set small goals to get there.
That's great. I think, I mean, I really just appreciate hearing kind of laying out that process, because I think it makes a lot of sense when you lay it out that way. And obviously y'all are doing amazing work, and it's paid off for your students ultimately and your staff. We're reaching our end of our time together. So I just really want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Wendy. It's been a pleasure to meet you, for me, and I'm sure for everybody here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
And just want to remind everybody that that may be viewing this afterwards or viewing this on our page, that you are welcome to join us in our Second Step educator community, where we have conversations like this every month, and every day we're having all sorts of conversations around how to implement Second Step and social emotional learning, and we would love to have you join us there. So until then, until we see you in the community, thank you all very much for joining us, and I'll talk to you all later.